Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy and our most fundamental freedoms. Remember the chaos, the division, the attacks that took rights and liberties from the American people. We cannot allow that to happen again.
He who has vowed, if reelected, he would be a dictator on day one, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Anybody who wants to be president of the United States, who has called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States, should never again have the ability to stand behind the seal of the President of the United States.
America, as we begin this election year, we must be clear. Democracy is on the ballot. Your freedom is on the ballot.
The Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Viewers, Donald Trump has won the US election. It's all but a certainty now, and by all accounts, his third attempt to be president is his most successful yet. The swing states seem to have swung only his way. He also looks on track to win the popular vote. The switch to Kamala Harris did not deliver the results that the Democrats wanted. Many reasons. But in all this, don't forget, viewers, and this is especially important for all of us in India to note, the politics of democracy being in danger, the politics of fear-mongering and hate-mongering, the politics of hurling abuse and insults at voters, the politics of lurking in shadows and trying to pull strings and create divides. All that has been completely rejected by the voters. Sample this, viewers. In the last week of polls, rather than forcefully pitching what they would do if America gives them another chance, top Democratic leaders were busy calling Trump Hitler, fascist and whatnot, and his supporters garbage. Can you believe it? Did it help them in the polls? Politicians should ask themselves, and Trump is undoubtedly, viewers, a special case. There may be no politician quite like him, but certainly there are lessons from the US elections that leaders here in India may also want to emulate. I wonder if they'll agree with me. For instance, this business of insulting states that have unerringly voted for the BJP for years now. Gujarat is the best example. Think about it. Enough and more derogatory things have been said about Gujarat in politics, about calling BJP supporters bhakts and unbhakts and whatnot. And how can we forget the latest trend, abusing Sanatan? Yes, it may be politically desirable for some to split the Hindu vote bank, but why compare it to diseases, and why call people who vote for BJP Rakshas, demons and other unkind words, as for instance Randeep Surjewala had done, or other leaders had even. For instance, just sample the reactions. One TMC leader has mocked Trump's mandate and wisdom of voters. So whether it's India or America, or for that matter almost every election all around the world these days, what does it tell us? Is that politicians and parties and pollsters and even the media, viewers, must respect the voters and their intelligence. Smoke and mirrors, deception, jibes, name-calling, fear-mongering, all may make sound waves, but need not win one respect or votes. And that's the biggest takeaway from these elections, viewers. Sample the reactions.
And I think that sometimes voters move beyond fear. Spreading fear is very different from spreading hope. And I think that in India as well, there was a fake narrative that was very prevalent during the Lok Sabha elections.
We have seen that it is a defeat of this democracy khatre mein hai, Samvidhan khatre mein hai narrative. The idea to scare people that if the verdict does not go in your favor, democracy has lost. This is from the playbook and handbook of woke left liberals.
They are mired people, and such things are not to be replied. They don't have any task.
Republicans, particularly Trump, had resorted to many gimmickry, like 2 shooting incidents. These are all incidents which we have seen in India. that he has copied. Maybe some advisors from India had told that you play a drama so that we can win.
You heard the reactions. Let's quickly open this up. Dinesh D'Souza, author. Dr. Ranganathan needs no introduction. Shehzad Poonawala, the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Kamruzaman Chaudhary ji, Lokesh Jindal, Professor Monojit Mondal. All political analysts. Nish Acharya, former advisor to Biden administration, will be joining us shortly. Mr. D'Souza, good to have you. First up, I want to ask you, what do you make of the results? Those who ridiculed Donald Trump, said democracy is in danger, that Donald Trump is Hitler. They've got the answer.
There has been this idea that somehow when you have a democratic election with two rival candidates, that somehow one candidate poses a threat to democracy itself. Now, this is on the face of it preposterous, because Trump and Kamala Harris were contesting for the same job. It's a job that Trump occupied before. If he was a dictator, he was truly the worst dictator in the history of the world, because dictators don't relinquish office. Trump thought he won in 2020. If he was really a dictator, he would have stayed in office. But when his court challenges failed, he exited the stage and decided to run again, which is what you do in a democratic system. So the point is not only that these accusations were preposterous, but they were made with such insistent unanimity that there was a kind of chorus of voices drumbeating this idea into the American people. And ultimately the American people said, or at least a majority said, nah, we don't believe it.
And there is a growing pattern here in India, which is why I said in my introduction that the results have a lesson for politicians in India. Lokesh Jindal, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, and Professor Monojit Mondal, who represent the opposition tonight. I have a simple question. Even after the verdict in America, look at the kind of commentary here. Some are ridiculing the mandate, others are in denial. There's a liberal meltdown. That's a different thing altogether. This is exactly what happened after Modi won his third term.
Can I answer, Pranesh?
Please.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Although Donald Trump has won the elections, but his stance with respect to the immigration policy, now previously when he told about constructing a wall, now there would be mass deportations. Donald Trump, who has refused to nominate the judges.
That's not the question, Lokesh. That's not the question. At least match the answer to the question.
No, I am coming to it. Have some patience. Donald Trump refused to nominate the judges for the dispute settlement in WTO. Here is Donald Trump, who has been calling India tariff abuser. Here is a president who is anti-India when we talk about H-1B visas. Here is a president who calls upon protectionist policies. And then on what basis are you qualifying him to be champion of democracy?
Oh, so how did he win? How dare the American voters vote for Donald Trump? Just like you said that Modi has ensured that democracy is in danger, there is undeclared emergency, and he won. Shehzad, respond to what you heard from Lokesh.
First of all, Pranesh, and to everybody on Times Now, it is a great moment that the oldest and the largest democracy in the world has now witnessed another democratic nation undertake such an exercise. So from the people of India, from the Bharatiya Janata Party, I extend my congratulations to America, to the American people, and to the decision they've made in the form of Donald Trump ji. But having said that, today it's not just the victory of democracies that we can all celebrate. It is actually the victory over a fake narrative, a victory over this cabal. And from Haryana to Houston, the message is clear that those who peddle this fakery of Samvidhan khatre mein hai, democracy khatre mein hai, merely because the democracy does not give the result that they desire, that has come to a big halt. Today, the second aspect is that those who put vote bank niti and politics of convenience above national politics or politics of nationalism, they have also been given a resounding defeat. And thirdly, those who castigate the entire supporter base of another rival as garbage, basket of deplorables, or in India, if you see, they are calling them Sanghis, etc., and paint them with a particular brush or paint the representative as Hitler. That kind of narrative has also been given a resounding defeat. So today there are learnings, but problem is that while people in Houston have taken the learnings, people who have got defeated in Haryana are still coy of accepting it. As far as what India will gain, India will not gain, the fact of the matter is that Trump has been very hard on Pakistan. The fact of the matter is that Trump has cut funds to Pakistan. Right. The fact of the matter is that Trump has been very hard on China when it has been trying to monopolize on various fronts. The fact of the matter is that Trump, like Modi, spoke up on Hindus. But these people who speak about Mohabbat ki Dukaan were crying for Muslims in Gaza, but not a word was uttered on Hindus in Canada or Hindus in Bangladesh. And today, Lokesh, therefore I must ask you, I understand that the entire Soros cabal is feeling depressed, and so are you. But at least today you should be happy that somebody who has spoken up for Hindus has won and has come to the Oval Office. Why are you so depressed?
Kamruzaman ji, why are you unhappy?
Nobody is unhappy, neither am I elated, because it hardly matters whoever wins the US presidential election is the victory for the people of America that have elected a US president. But it's time to reflect the 2020 elections when same President Donald, then the incumbent president, refused to accept the results on 2020. What happened in the January 6 Capitol attack by Trump supporters is all for us to recollect and reflect. If it's a democracy, if the democracy has won today, so it had when Joe Biden won the election in 2020. But it hardly matters. You know, I want to point out here, Pranesh, through your program, the stark similarity between the style of campaigning between two whom we consider as hardliners in the country of the ruling the world's largest democracies, the United States of America and India. Both of them survive on the fear factor. And very stark similarity on only one point. Trump led his campaign on the issue of immigrants taking over the US. In India also, the present elections, we can see how Narendra Modi is designing his campaign on the Ghuspetia plank or illegal immigrants in India. This is the stark similarity that I want to
Chaudhary, you see, this is the problem.
Whether my good friend
Dinesh D'Souza spoke about it. Shehzad spoke about it. I said it at the outset. That stop slamming the voter. Instead of applauding the wisdom of the voter, you are doubting the wisdom of the voter. You are comparing, Modi and Trump to Hitler, calling them both fascist. Now that the results have settled, what will it take for you to end this denial? Nish Acharya is with us, former advisor to the Biden administration. Nish Acharya, do you believe now in hindsight the garbage comment and the personal attacks on Donald Trump backfired?
No, I don't think ultimately that had a lot to do with the vote. I think what we're seeing is that the U.S. has a very traumatic 4 years from a macroeconomic perspective. We came out of COVID. We had the resulting inflation for a lot of reasons. We had the Russia war affecting food prices. And as I was telling someone this morning on another Indian network, in the U.S., strawberries right now are $10 a box. Pizza is $50 for 2 pizzas, and mortgage rates are 7%. And ultimately, that's not all Biden's fault. Some of that dates back to how Trump handled the COVID virus in the first place. But ultimately, that was too much to run from for the Democratic candidate. There's too much turmoil that Americans were concerned about. Lead from a antagonistic perspective, but works in his second and last term.
Mr. Acharya, I understand that, that's a reasonable point to have, reasonable expectation. I was only on the larger point of voter bashing, as we've seen in the US and in India. Dr. Ranganathan, we've heard voters being compared to demons, Rakshas. You know who said it. The garbage commentary in the US. Even now, going by what Lokesh Jindal said, Kamruzaman Chaudhary has said, there's no learning.
Good evening, Pranesh, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Look, I think, first up, let me just say this, arguably the greatest comeback in the history of politics and unprecedented at multiple levels, and congratulations to Donald Trump and his entire team, and also the X factor, pun not intended, Elon Musk. Look, the fact of the matter is that there are two issues here, and I want to delve into both of them because both of them are important. The first one is directly the question that you asked. Let me answer it. The issue is nothing new. The Democrats, the leftists, the Congress, the socialists, the ones who are on the center or the left of center or extreme left, have normalized name calling and labeling to such an extent that I'm afraid it's no longer an issue. I mean, they call anyone Hitler or a bigot or an Islamophobe. So that's not an election issue. And to be honest out here, I think the abuses were hurled to and fro. This time, I think Donald Trump and his team hurled more abuses towards the Democrats and Kamala Harris than the other way around. So I don't think that's the issue. The fact of the matter is there were so many things that were wrong with Donald Trump. So many. But there was not a single thing that was right with Kamala Harris. Not a single thing. Higher taxes, ridiculing wealth generators, unchecked mass illegal immigration, unbridled wokeism and social engineering, to name a few. And ironically, and this is important out here, especially for India, Trump managed to convince majority of Americans, especially Latinos and blacks, the blue-collared and the working class, through promises that are quite frankly straight out of the socialist cookbook, if not the communist manifesto. Protectionism, high tariffs, trade renegotiations, quotas, in short, American license Raj. This time round, Trump is even more virulently America first, even more anti-globalization to an even higher degree than he was previously. Anti-Vasudeva Kutumbakam, anti-the world is a family, or at least he believes he has the God-given right to be head of the family. And therefore, although in the short run this will help America because through protectionism and higher tariffs and quotas, Trump will create more jobs for Americans, more domestic growth and lower imports. In the long run, protectionism and high tariffs will result in what they've always resulted in, Pranesh, a socialist trap that ultimately destroys a country's economy through less choice for consumers, outdated technology, increasing animosity with other countries, and higher prices because of lack of competition and monopoly. So this is a double-edged sword, and Trump is walking on thin ice.
Trump may be walking on thin ice, but you know, the ground beneath some of our opposition leaders is slipping away, and they are in la-la land. I'm sorry to say this, but that is what the public sentiment seems to be. Monojit Mondal, I am reading out what has been said about Prime Minister Modi. डरा हुआ तानाशाह, एक मरा हुआ लोकतंत्र बनाना चाहता है. And just translate it is what Joe Biden said about Trump. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. He's a genuine threat to this nation. Kamala Harris said it's simple. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy and fundamental freedoms. He's a dictator.
No, at times it appears to me the kind of illusion that my friend from BJP showed is that Begana Shadi mein Abdullah Dibana. What will happen to you if Trump is jumping on the ship or he is climbing that White House now through the stairs? Doesn't matter. Can you restore democracy in Bangladesh through your friend Mr. Donald Trump? That is the biggest concern for us both in Bengal and India. If the Hindus in Bangladesh are suffering, what are you doing? It's America's creation.
No, you want Donald Trump to restore democracy in India. You believe there is no democracy in our country. Monojit Mondal, you want Donald Trump to restore democracy in India?
You do not understand. You did not understand my question. I talked about Bangladesh.
Okay, sir.
I did not talk about India. Listen to me properly.
Okay.
I talked about Bangladesh, which was created by America. Now, will this be reversed by Mr. Donald Trump with the advice of Mr. Narendra Modi, who claims to be his greatest friend? I want to understand that. If that is the case, my friend talked about Hindus suffering in Bangladesh. So what is Mr. Modi is going to do with your friend?
So you're saying the BJP is exulting. What will it get us? Shehzad?
American stooge. Yes.
He's answering your question. Monojit Mondal, Shehzad is answering your question.
To paraphrase Mr. Monojit, ये अब्दुल्ला उतना ही दीवाना है जितना आप जैसे अब्दुल्ला हमास और हिजबुल्लाह पे दीवाने होते हैं। भाई नसरल्ला मरा तो नस आपने ही काटी ना, तो जब नसरल्ला मरे और आप नस काट लो और यहां पर एक डेमोक्रेटिक व्यक्ति डेमोक्रेटिक तरीके से जीत कर आया है, तो मैं डेमोक्रेसी की जीत का जश्न मनाऊं तो आपको पेट में दर्द होता है। And you forget about Hindus in Bangladesh. Your party has not taken any stand on it, but you tell me about Hindus in Bengal first. Sir, when Ram Navami takes place, not a single yatra can go through without being attacked by a bunch of people that your chief minister comes out and shamelessly defends, saying that because they are Rozedars, they will not attack anybody. So therefore, you must have chinta about the Hindus in Bengal before you even think about Hindus in Bangladesh. Now, just now before Mr. Monojit, Kamruzama Chaudhary said that, look, Trump did not accept the mandate, whatever happened in Capitol Hill. Either he or Lokesh said it. Sir, who is disrespecting the mandate in Haryana? Who said we will not accept the mandate in Haryana and said EVMs were wrong, 99% battery charge tha EVM ka? Who has said this on numerous occasions and disregarded the mandate when it was inconvenient for you? And finally, you know, Trump suffers from the same thing that Prime Minister Modi, the intellectual terrorism of the woke left. And I disagree with Anand here. Name calling may have been mainstreamed and made very normalized by this intellectual terror group of left, but it needs to be called out, and I'm glad that today it has been called out at a global level, because these are the people who kind of divide societies, who create a lot of conflict in societies by using these terminologies. They are actually the Islamophobes. Please tell me that the maximum number of Muslims are killed in China, are put in concentration camps, but yet not a single word will be uttered by this ilk, who will keep quiet on the Xinjiang province, but will call others Islamophobe. So this is the true face. They are neither progressive nor liberal. They are actually
before you answer that, you know, Monojit Mondal was saying that how does it matter who becomes the US president? I'll tell you, when Joe Biden won the presidential bid, he became the president and Trump lost the last time around. Many in the opposition, and I don't have to take names, you know who they are, said that, look, Trump is out, next Modi will be out. That did not happen. Modi is back, now Trump is back. And now you're ridiculing the voter.
Pranesh, one thing you must understand, whether Trump or Kamala Harris won the election, what vis-a-vis does these presidents bring to the table in India? Let me just elaborate on one or two points what Trump did to India during his earlier tenure. He brought in the America First policy, which imposed sanctions on Indian goods like the steel and aluminum. Now it's up to the new administration to decide what it does. H-1B restrictions were imposed. Withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement by Donald Trump. Then the same Donald Trump, the friend of our dear Prime Minister Narendra Modi, wanted to mediate in the Kashmir affairs. Now Shehzad must clarify whether his newfound friendship with Donald Trump, will he allow Donald Trump to mediate on Kashmir, which is a very big burning issue.
I'm asking you a question. 1 minute. I'm asking you a question. 1 minute. Kamruzamanji, do you know what Donald Trump said about the plight of Hindus in Bangladesh? Let Mr. D'Souza tell you what he said. He did not mince his words. Mr. D'Souza, would you like to enlighten some of our panelists, sir, what Donald Trump said about the plight of Hindus in Bangladesh?
I would like to, if I may, give a little broader perspective on what I think Trump represents and the reason why he is now in a very spectacular way entering the Oval Office for a second time, something that most people would have considered improbable or perhaps even impossible. The essence of Trump is simply the idea that a leader of a country should put the citizens of that country first, America first, right? Now, I mean, I grew up in India. I know that all over the world, it is an article of faith. It is a basic assumption that the leader of a country is going to look out for their own country. Their primary interest is not the world. It's not other countries. It's not illegals trying to get into your country. It is the citizens of your own country. Now, we have been living in a pathological situation in which we've had a regime in the United States that pretends to be somehow the tutor of the world, the lecturer of the world, the moral exemplar of the world, the people who tell the world what to do in the names of a so-called liberal rules-based order. And these are the same people who lecture other people on democracy, even while in the United States, they have mass surveillance of citizens. They support systematic censorship. They criminalize political differences. They have tried to lock up the leader of the opposition party, Trump, and put him in jail for life. There have been 2 assassination attempts on Trump, which have in some cases been cheered by people on the left and in the Democratic Party. So all this thuggery is going on in the United States by people using police state tactics and police state schemes, and they are entirely in support of it, and their supporters are in support of it. And at the same time, on the global stage, they act as if they are some kind of wonderful champions of democracy and civil liberties. There's a shameless hypocrisy that defines the Biden-Harris regime. The American people have opened their eyes to it. They know that the media is a cheerleader for it in this country and in many parts of the world. And so this is what the American people are pushing back against.
You're right. And on the point of, calling for violence against Trump, look, in 2023, Democrat Dan Goldman said Trump is destructive to democracy and needs to be eliminated. His words, not mine. And Rahul Gandhi said this in 2020. ये जो नरेंद्र मोदी अभी भाषण दे रहा है, मैं बता रहा हूं 6 महीने बाद, 7-8 महीने बाद घर से निकल नहीं पाएगा, हिंदुस्तान के युवा उसको डंडा मारेंगे. So what has changed, Dr. Ranganathan? Look at the similarity in narrative. Shehzad was talking about intellectual terror. This is an example of violence, open violence.
Doubtless, there is no disagreement that I have with what Shehzad said, outing this, or what Dinesh said, especially freedom of expression and surveillance and everything. This is straight out of the leftist, book or little yellow book that you may call it. There is no change at all. But the question out here is this happening for the first time? No. This comes from their sense of entitlement that whatever they say must be done, must be acted out. So surveillance, curb on freedom of speech, even changing the constitution. If you remember, one of the person who fought for presidential election, I think a decade ago, he was saying that we might have to amend the US Constitution and take away the free speech because ultimately we are the arbiter. So that's not the point out here, Pranesh. Just one slight point of disagreement with Dinesh, I beg your pardon, who's made excellent points. When he talked about America first, yes. And I mentioned why Trump, I would put his victory down to this single statement, not make America great again, but America first. He has gone completely protectionist. He is really thinking of America first. It will work for the short term, near term, for 4 or 5 years, it will work. But history tells you that protectionism, increasing tariffs, renegotiating trade agreements, quotas, license Raj, never works. Because ultimately, economy comes on rules. It has its own rules and regulations. You cannot tinker with it. Trump is trying to do what many others before him have tried and succeeded and won elections, but not for long.
It's only fair that Mr. D'Souza gets a chance to respond to that.
I think that with regard to protectionism, and one could make somewhat the same point with regard to the issue of immigrants. We keep hearing the phrase about immigrants, but let me finish the point about protectionism. Here's the problem. I think at the heart, Trump is in fact a free trader. Trump has been in business all his life. I think he understands that ultimately a business transaction, a trade, is beneficial to both parties. If I have milk to sell and you have money to pay for it, we're both better off. Trump knows that. I think the problem on the global stage is this. The United States has by and large been a relatively free trade country for a long time. and other countries that trade with the United States have not. So now you have a political problem, which is to say that the free trade is a bit of a one-way deal. You can sell foreign cars in the United States, and you're allowed to do that, and you don't have tariffs on them, or you have very modest tariffs. And then American cars can't be sold in Japan or can't be sold elsewhere without huge tariffs being put on those. So then the question becomes, politically, how do you take these tariffs down? And it could be argued that Trump's strategy here with the protectionism is essentially nothing more than a sort of mutually assured destruction. It's a little bit of a way of saying, hey, listen, we will take down our tariffs if you take down your tariffs. But you don't get to have a one-way street where you put tariffs on our goods and we don't put tariffs on your goods. So that may be a benign reading of what Trump wants. But I will tell you that the Republican Party, by and large, has been a free trade party going back to the days of Reagan. And I don't think that Trump is a radical departure from that.
Okay. Shehzad, answer what Monojit Mondal and Kamruzaman Chaudhary said. They said, what will the Modi-Trump bonhomie yield for India?
Look, it is evident today that India is in a sweet spot when it comes to diplomacy. On the one hand, we are in the Quad and we have strong relations, and we have also maintained it with SCO. We have bought the S-400 system, and we have also gone into the deal for the drones, Predator drones. We are buying sasta oil or cheaper oil from Russia, and we have not been sanctioned by any of the Western countries on this front. So we have been able to maintain a situation where we can meet both Israel and Palestine. We can meet both Putin and Zelensky and hammer a way out of conflict situations also. And people and the world is looking at us. But having said that, let us focus on something else. Rather than only examining that why nationalists and right-wing parties are doing well across the world now, we must examine that what is it that is making these Soros-backed, intellectually arrogant, leftist, wokist cabal system lose. Why don't they realize that there is now a limit to how much they can create fake narratives? Why don't they realize that there is a limit to how much they can spread lies about the other person and how much they can do this Rajniti of Bato and Raj Karo? Today is a stinging reply even on the Bato and Raj Karo Rajniti, the divide and rule Rajniti that many in the opposition continue to play.
Right. Dr. Ranganathan, quick point, yes.
Yeah, very quickly, just to slightly correct my good friend Dinesh, when you talked about imbalance in tariffs and America has lower tariffs to Japanese cars and Japanese have huge tariffs, I must correct him because he was supporting his argument based on that. Japan does not impose any tariffs on US-made cars. I just thought I should mention that.
Okay. Mr. Acharya, on the larger point of the failure, or for lack of a better word, the lack of appeal on the brand of politics, what would you say? Why are people rejecting the so-called left liberals?
So they haven't rejected the left liberals. The country is still roughly evenly split. We had a Democrat win the last election. We had a Republican before. We had Barack Obama for 8 years. The country is not rejecting a liberal. And again, as Trump has said, he's been more protectionist, more worker-oriented. And those are traditional left liberal positions. So there has been no change in the U.S. It remains a split country. I want to comment real quick on this nonsense I'm hearing from most of your guests about left-wing elitist. The United States, I've been part of elections now since 1992. And in 2000, we had an incredibly divisive election between George Bush and Al Gore, and there was no political violence. The political violence only entered the stage when Donald Trump came in 2016, and the number of comments and insults from Trump and his campaign towards nearly every ethnic group, including Indians, far outweighs and overwhelms any comments made on the Democratic side. So this culture in the United States is entirely driven not by the Republican Party, but by one individual, and that's what we need to keep in mind. I fully expect in 2028, when the Republicans run a more traditional candidate, that the temperature in the United States is going to cool down.
Mr. Biden said that Trump supporters are garbage. Look what happened. There can be a divergent point of view. It does not, you can't call it nonsense. Dr. Ranganathan, quick point, then we'll have to move on. Yes.
Yes, no, I think it's wrong to call this kind of reality as nonsense, especially when there is self-labeling going on by Mr. Acharya. Nobody said elitist. They are entitled. Elite is something good. These guys are mediocre, entitled people.
Shahzad.
No, can Mr. Acharya tell me when was the last time somebody categorized the entire base of Democrat voters as basket of deplorables? Can he tell me when was the last time that somebody used violent language and it was followed up by at least 2 assassination attempts on the candidate? So it is very easy for somebody sitting on the other side to categorize their own comments as non-harmful and look at somebody else's comments as the one promoting violence. This is the first hallmark of being an entitled person, which was the word used by Anand Ranganathan, not elitist.